Hello and welcome to EEXSport Talk. I am your host, Gift C Enyadike Jr., and we are here for a special edition of the show because we've got a large supporting cast. First, of course, joining us from Atlantic Blue, the legend, journalist, sports analyst, businessman, my father, Emeka Enyadike. Joining us from Abuja is Dr. Tochukwu Onwuzulike. We have Mr. Matt Webb from Wild Football Group, Dr. Ummukulthoum Bakare, also known as KT, joining us from Canada. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing
You're
great.
Got a World Cup
Lovely to be
hangover.
here.
Super happy.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about. Of course, we got the World Cup final that reflected the tournament as a whole. We also have to talk about EEXSport Game Night, which was held on Sunday during the final, and the future of football development through the EEXSport Football Pathway and our partnership with Wild Football Group. That's all business. Let's start with the fun stuff. How's everyone feeling about the World Cup final? Because I'm not happy. Look, congratulations to Spain, but for me personally, Messi, my GOAT. All right. I want him to go back to back, but him and his team and his fans and the Argentinian fans to an extent were a disgrace. And how do you go 100 minutes without even attempting to score a goal? Anyway, the floor is yours. Who wants to go first?
So I can start. Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Katie, you can go.
Yeah, I was gonna say that let's not take anything away from Messi for this tournament because at 39 years of age, 40 years old, still delivering what he's delivering, he pretty much carried Argentina on his back. And unfortunately, the ugly scenes that was associated with Argentina in that final and even leading up to the final, because there was a lot of people, including myself, who felt that Argentina's threshold for receiving cards and fouls being called on them against them, or even 50-50 chances are always going their way. So in a way, that kind of just cast this shadow on the spectacular display, I would say, that Messi had in this tournament, because not many 39-year-olds or 40-year-olds can do what Messi is doing, both from a skill standpoint and both from his football intelligence and everything. And yeah, as much as I was rooting for other countries apart from Argentina, as you can see, I'm Spanish, for this World Cup final or the World Cup final. And I'll have to give it to Messi that he really showed the stuff of gold that is made of, to give him all the credit.
Dibu Martinez too, because he was carrying the team in that game, as far as I go. Dr. Tochukwu, I think you wanted to speak as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think I'm a little bit worried that maybe I'm seeing a lot of negativity after the final, especially towards Messi. I have to say I'm a little bit invested. I'm told many times I do have a face like Messi, and this is why I'm wearing the Egyptian shirt, because some Egyptian friends have told me it may not be safe for me to return to Cairo due to the level of hatred for Argentina right now. So I'm really invested, and I hope the world, when it dies down a little bit, they go back to kind of appreciating and respecting. Like you said, Katie, he put in an admirable performance all the way through the tournament. Really was a one-man team. Yeah, so I think it's hard. In England, we were taught to hate Argentina. And for the last couple of editions, I have been somewhat supporting them just because I wanted to see Messi do well. So I'm interested to see what the future holds.
Matt, it's true. I actually do a double take because I thought, what's Messi doing on this podcast?
He's here to make amends to the world.
Yeah, you're Messi's doppelganger for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a bit of a shame because...
for me, the World Cup Argentina's run had a lot of similarities with their run in 1990. Okay, in 86, obviously they won the cup. 2022, they won the cup. Maradona carried them to the finals in a one-sided final. And if you recall, they got a red card in the 90 final, and it was as if history was repeating itself. Argentina getting a red card and losing by 1 goal to exactly the same scoreline, 1-0, the same scoreline against West Germany in 1990. So it was just a repeat of history. That was something I found notable.
Yeah, part of me wonders whether they would have been better off. Sorry, I was going to say better off maybe losing in the semi-finals, because everyone's going to remember that final, and it's maybe not a fitting end to remember, which was otherwise a very good run.
Yeah,
and for me, I think I'm not going to, say anything negative about Messi. Messi, he showed in this tournament just why he's talked about in terms of the greatest of all time. From my school of thought, I still believe Pelé is the greatest, and maybe I watched too much of Pelé's games, unlike a lot of people who haven't seen a lot of his games. I was really fascinated with Pelé when I was growing up, so I kind of watched, just about everything I could find from games. I think of coming to the World Cup, winning the World Cup at 17, his performance in 70, difference between Pele and Maradona and Messi and all the other people talked about in the greatest of all time conversation is that Pele was always in teams that had players that were really big players, but he stood out in each and every one of them. I thought in 70 they had then this guy called Jesse, who was an amazing midfielder. And then, of course, there was Tostao, there was Rivelino, there was not Garrincha, there was Jairzinho. And then in 58 and 74, there were players like Garrincha, Ito, even Mario Zagallo, as Nils Santos. They had some really incredible players in those teams. But Messi, pretty much like Maradona, carried this Argentine team over the last two tournaments, even in 2014 to an extent. And I think at 39, he showed something that, even players who were way younger than him, not sure. Spain had to come up with a plan, which was trying to level his field and deny him pass. He was always going on. And there were moments where, he tried to create something similar to what he did against England and to carry the team through what was a difficult game where they didn't have a lot of shots or probably had no shots. But, having said that, I think overall it was a very good final in the sense of a very tactical game where the Spanish had to keep the ball away from the Argentines. They dominated possession, but the Argentines always found a way. Sometimes a little bit rough in their methods, but they stayed in the game all the way to extra time. And to be fair to Spain, they deserved to win. They had their moments. And I think the man of the match for me will be Martinez in goal for Argentina, because the amount of saves that he did, there were a lot of shots. Most of them you could see because the defense was really tight. But the goal that got in eventually was one where he could do nothing about it, because Spain in this tournament reacted first to every rebound situation. And so Ferran Torres writes his name in history as the guy who scored the winning goal in this tournament. Really amazing.
That he does. Absolutely. And I think we could just say, overall, was this, everyone, the expanded format, the three host nations, controversies going and everything aside. But was this, can we confidently say this was a good World Cup?
I think that this World Cup was different, but I liked it because we wouldn't have seen the likes of Cape Verde, who I feel like the real winners of this World Cup, because they didn't lose to defending champions of the world and they didn't lose to the defending Euro champions. So in 90 minutes. So I think that this format gave us the opportunity to see other teams that we wouldn't ordinarily have seen. About 3 countries hosting the World Cup. Logistically, it was a significant nightmare, I would say, just because in terms of having to cross borders, having to understand, political challenges that are not making certain teams be in certain places, and they have to keep traveling back and forth across the border to go and play their matches, or having visas being denied on allegation basis, and not having your full squad and all this type of stuff. And I think one of the things that I particularly feel like this World Cup didn't really give to us was to really get fans involved. I know there were a lot of fans, but they were diaspora fans for the most part. And, it only restricted certain types of people, or certain groups of people, to be able to come and experience the World Cup. And the World Cup is a global event. Whether we like it or not, it needs to essentially bring people together. And I would have loved to see a lot more fans who really wanted to make it to this World Cup, or who had the capacity to make it to this World Cup, would have had the opportunity to do so. But, that didn't really happen. But again, we still had some unforgettable moments of the World Cup. And I feel like, if there are other countries that are going to co-host, which we're going to be seeing more co-hosting opportunities, I suppose. I think the next World Cup has 5 countries co-hosting across, 2 different continents.
Even more.
It'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you say in terms of the stories that came to before. Like you said, Cape Verde, they were definitely the real winners. For me, I only really began to take an interest after the group stage. There's too many games. I'm somebody who likes to watch every single match. That's not possible with this many teams. And actually, I think especially in Europe, there's a little bit of people looking down on having so many teams. But the teams that actually made statements, like Cape Verde, like Curacao, they would have qualified even if it was 32 teams, because obviously freed CONCACAF hosts, opened up more opportunities to CONCACAF nations. Cape Verde probably, did they win their qualifying group in CAF anyway? So these teams would have qualified on merit, and maybe having 48 teams, 48 is a weird number. I don't want to say maybe we should go to 64, because I'm really open to having new teams. For me, it's the best part of a World Cup, is learning about new countries and giving more opportunities. But maybe the jeopardy of the group stage wasn't as good. I remember Qatar 4 years ago, the jeopardy of the final group stage was, wow, that was, anybody could go through at any time. But this time we maybe felt like we lacked that jeopardy from the group stage. But that's not to say there wasn't some great matches afterwards.
I agree with what Katie said. Cape Verde were the standout newcomers. They had a great World Cup. Having 48 teams has its downsides and it has its upsides, okay? So I don't know how FIFA is going to marry their financial objectives with making the games more inclusive. Like she said, the fans were priced out of many of the games because of the high cost of the ticket prices. So that's one thing for FIFA to think about, how to marry their financial targets and making the games more inclusive.
And if you want to talk about money, I just recently heard the story this morning about how Spain has to pay 30% of their winnings, which was something like, yeah, it was shocked me, because I'm like, what? But that is, apparently there's a law in the US, but the host nations are able to actually waive the fees on that, but the United States decided not to do that. So that was a bit of a shocker, a bit of some new information for me as well. It's like, wow. And they played most of their games in the United States. So it's like, yeah.
This kind of applies to everything. When you travel around the world, it happened also with the Women's World Cup. These are actually not non-issues that people try to make an issue out of it. When you're trying to host the World Cup, that's usually the local element to it. So that applies to every country and every situation. I think it shouldn't be made into a big story.
Yeah, I think part of the reason some people had an issue with it, I believe Mexico and Canada actually waived the whole taxation thing. So whichever host nation, whoever would have won, wouldn't have had to deal with taxes from them. But I think some people saw that and go, well, why couldn't the US do it as well? Especially with how much
they could have all of this resolved before the tournament and not afterwards.
Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah,
ultimately. But yeah, we talked about the expanded format of 10 of teams, and we got 10 CAF teams, 9 of which made it into the knockout stages. Sadly, all of them, with the exception of Morocco, made it into the quarters. All of them, sorry, with the exception of Morocco, were kicked out before they could make it into the quarters. So I guess the big lesson that we as Africans should take from this, in terms of actually what we do when we get to the World Cup, and also actually making it to the World Cup. Nigeria. So yeah, honestly, what are some big lessons I think we can take away from that?
I think for me, the big lesson is that you have to prepare. When the World Cup is in 2030, start preparing now. So the African team will wait until when it's 2030 before they start preparing. Those who qualified, you already have the experience. You have players, you know which of them will be useful for 2030. I mean, some of them might be older but still active, might be younger but fall out of the way. What is important is they need to make sure of who's their coach in 2030 already. They need to also have an idea of which players might be relevant, and then use the AFCON as a testing ground for the next generation of players that will come through. I think that's the one thing I worry about, because far too many African countries change their coaches when it's close to the World Cup, and that's not a good thing.
Every time.
I believe firmly that if Morocco kept their coach on, they probably would have maybe matched the achievement of the last World Cup semi-finals, or even been in the finals, because they had their moments in this tournament, and it showed that, with a little bit more self-belief and a lot more tactical strengths, they probably would have been able to go. But
who knows indeed. But I guess, speaking of Africa, we do have to talk about, we bring the conversation back home to Nigeria. I mentioned at the beginning, EEXSport hosting the game night in Atlantic Blue, which was a nice little watch party where we could a whole group of fans could come in and watch the final. And this event picked up a lot of steam. We had ITV, we had AIT, we had TVC, all these major news platforms in Nigeria covering the. I want to and I think Dr. KT, you yourself, you were taking part in quite a few fan activations up in Canada as well. So I'd like to know, from both you and from Daddy, how important are events? How important are events like that for the fan experience?
Definitely very. Fan experience is so key in football because that's what makes it the beautiful game as far as I am concerned. The fans make the atmosphere that really you feel whether you're in or outside of the stadium. So giving opportunities to fans to experience the World Cup, be it through a watch party, be it through different activation activities, because not everybody can make it into the stadium, even if you can afford it, right? So I think it goes a long way in creating this awareness of the power of football. Everybody understands that language. The majority of everyone on planet Earth understands what football is, right? Even if you don't speak the same language. And it is interesting too that many people were not into football before. Somehow they went to a watch party with a friend of theirs and all of a sudden they want to see football all the time. They're seeing on their timeline friends montages, different things, Jude Bellingham and Erling Haaland's bromance and different aspects of the beautiful game, coming to forth. It is so essential. That's why going back to what Emeka said, preparation is so key. And that's, I think, what we fail to do in Africa. Outside of that, we also need our administrators to understand that development doesn't happen overnight. You have to nurture talent. Even when you ID talent, you have to nurture talent. It takes time. There has to be that progression through the ranks for you to find that end product that you need for your team to be able to perform on the world stage. If you look at the project that Morocco has, both their male and female teams, you'll notice that they started to dominate over a period of time in the last, decade or so, because they chose to do those investments in their sport and for both the men's and women's teams. So they're quite dominant on the continent and we can see it displaying itself as well on the global stage. So we really have to kind of come together and decide that really Africa has the raw talent. How do we harness this talent to deliver on the global stage? That is the conversation we need to be having. And it's a collective effort. CAF needs to do what needs to be done to help member organizations. Member organizations need to do what needs to be done to help grassroots to ensure that players are taken care of and all the things that is involved in making that product, which is the player essentially, be able to deliver on the biggest stage.
Absolutely, Dad. You were obviously there for the game night, hosting it yourself, and you did a few interviews as well. You want to give us that, because honestly, it doesn't do it justice. You see the videos, but how for you, what was the atmosphere like? What was the whole event? Everything, just being there.
And I must say that, it was a very memorable evening. We're building this community of football fans. Dr. Tochukwu wasn't feeling great on Sunday, so he couldn't make it there. But it was so nice to see. We had two legends, Austin Eguavo and Brownie Day. So it was great to actually community actually watch the game with the legends. Yeah, and game night concept, the concept that's about a community with a team around football, fun, and togetherness. It's a networking platform where there's obviously opportunity for people to play games. We have the quizzes sometimes. We have the win prizes, and it's something that's done around football and sports whenever those events are on and people can come together and just have fun and networking, and it's one of the big part of it. I mean, there's food and there's drinks and just this time around we had it on a poolside. What was so weird was that there was heavy rains on Saturday and on Monday there was heavy rains, but on Sunday there wasn't any rains and a lot more people preferred to sit outdoors poolside rather than watch indoors. That made it all the more,
God be the
more
glory.
special. And we for about 5 hours. So very, very good experience, as you can see already from the cage that will follow.
Yeah, and what did it mean for you to see it, to get all this network coverage? I mentioned this, the studios and the networks that were covering it. What did it mean for you to actually see that this event was picking up just the steam with all the big networks in the country, which then becomes a global audience because as well.
I think the good thing about it is that when you have moments like this, and like Katie was saying, people often underestimate the fans. So the game is always about the ball players, the coaches, about legends, it's about people who play the game. I think the most important people in the conversation are the fans. And those of us who sit and watch the games. Without the fans, you don't have the moments. Even if you can have, even if the tickets are $1 million each, will still not be more than 90 or 100,000 people in the stadium, depending on how big it is. So the beauty is that you have so many more people watching out there. And within the city, there are people watching. There are a lot of watch parties everywhere. But the beauty is that for a lot of people, it was also discovery, because Atlantic Blue is just an amazing venue. It's 6 months old, founded by Aaron Tam Brown, who's a great guy. It's located very close to the Games Village, and it's very cozy. And for a lot of people, first of all, it was a journey of discovery, trying to find it, and then when they arrive, it's like an oasis, And then to think that all of that journey, is coming to sit and watch and have fun. The exciting part is that you don't know who you're going to meet or who's the latest guy who's part of the community, and then suddenly you have legends there. It was great for everyone to see. People had opinions. There seemed to be divided fast. People supporting Argentina and supporting Spain as well. And at the end of the day, you could tell who was celebrating and who wasn't celebrating. But people were hugging and all of that. So it was really amazing to see that, unlike the players on the field who then were up to some other antics. The good thing is that the news and the game night concept will continue. Tochukwu being part of it as well. He can say one or two things about the game night.
Yeah, if you'd like to, Mr. Dr. Tochukwu, if you could as well, go into the planning and whatnot and the brainstorming of the game night event.
As they said in the FIFA World Cup advert, football really, really brings people together. So the game night is just an opportunity to build community, build networks, and reminisce on our shared heritage, which is football. Fantastic atmosphere, and I know it's going to get bigger. I know it's going to get better with time, because it was fabulous.
Thank you so much for that.
I think we need more corporate partnerships for activities like this, just because it touches every sphere of human connection, and definitely has that potential to continue to grow. But it's also important to have corporate partners that can get it to where it needs to be, and knowing that Nigeria is a space of a lot of opportunity. So I would imagine that, corporate partners should look into collaborations that can, it's a win-win for everyone. So I'm looking forward to, all the subsequent editions, because again, football doesn't end when the World Cup comes to an end. We're just shifting into a different phase of football. The African Women's Cup of Nations will start very soon. We're moving to the leagues rolling out in August. So yeah, there's a lot of football to go around, and I'm sure we can host games night for almost every single game if possible. But yeah, there's a huge potential.
She's dead. You see, she just called you out. Now you have to hold every game now. She just called you out.
Well, we'll try.
Dad, I know you can do it. So yeah.
No, I mean, 20 years ago when we had the UEFA Champions League, we had a massive
Champions Planet. I remember it clearly.
Champions Planet, when I was in Barcelona for Heineken. That was amazing experience, traveling around the big cities. That's when I realized just how big the Arsenal fan base is. You won't believe the Arsenal fan base in Nigeria is huge. Insane.
Yeah.
You go to some remote places and you think, all of these guys are Arsenal fans. They have the shirts. Some of them went somewhere and they had some cows.
We're everywhere.
They had cows painted Arsenal color. They had these traditional African prints printed with Arsenal.
Do we have Carney to thank for that? Is that either?
I think in the beginning, but then at that point 20 years ago, I had left, and Thierry Henry had been given a Nigerian title called Igwe, which is like like a king. Then everywhere you went, if Arsenal was playing on the lights, everyone's kind of like, they're just bowing and saying Igwe. It kind of reminds me of when you go to Camp Nou to watch Messi and how all the fans are going down like Messi, Messi. That's how they used to do with Thierry Henry. And Thierry is not Nigerian. They just loved him. Arsenal fan base just grew so loudly, and that's why you can find now with Arsenal winning the league. They had in my home city, they had
big concert. Yeah.
I mean, I put it at a concert in Port Harcourt. They had a talk with like a parade.
Yeah, it was. It's unfortunate I can't make fun of Arsenal anymore. That was. Yeah.
Well, that's the great thing that football never stops. So give it 4 weeks. I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity to rekindle the hatred.
Yeah.
Gift, you need to just understand that you can't hate Arsenal fans. Even if you wanted to, you cannot hate Arsenal fans. That's just the reality of it. Yeah, you can't hate us because we're all up in your face.
I didn't hate you guys until you started saying some stuff about Bukayo Saka being on par with prime Messi. Then we had a problem. That was when we had a problem. I was cool with y'all until you started saying something like Declan Rice is on par with Steven Gerrard. What are we doing here?
But excuse me. Gift, did Messi score a hat-trick at this World Cup? Let's start asking the question. Let's start asking the right question.
He's never scored a hat-trick in a bronze.
Did Messi score a hat-trick at this World Cup?
Yeah. Show me Messi's bronze medal. He's never won a bronze medal.
No, but whether you like it or not, every fan base has their own fans that will stand on anything to argue to the end of the world that their player is better than anybody else. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's just the reality. Same thing with United fans, same thing with Liverpool fans. People come out and tell you with their full chest that my player is better than yours. See? That's it. That's just it. That's my perspective. That's what I believe. I love Steve Gerrard, by the way. I mean, I have players that I admire from other clubs, but again, my Arsenal origin story started from way back, and it's not even because of Kanu.
The player who made me fall in love with Liverpool was Kevin Keegan. Just wrote that I haven't posted anything about it on social media.
Condolences actually to you as a Liverpool fan.
The Charles Keegan was like a pocket battleship. It was incredible. He also made me love England as well. And he also made me love Bundesliga because he went and played for Hamburg. His time as manager of Newcastle was incredible. There was this run in '96 where they went really toe-to-toe with Man United. And then I will never forget him going on TV and saying things like, how they're not going to start, they'll go and then eventually they bottle it.
Yeah, we were loving it, we'll beat them. I remember that quote.
Yeah.
That game that ended 4-3. And Colin must have the winning goal. I went and I cropped out four photos of Keegan, but I couldn't bring myself to post it because just difficult to process the fact that it's passed away.
I hope he gets the respect he deserves, and I think actually for my generation at least, we saw Keegan more of a manager. And actually, I wasn't really aware of all the achievements and what a great player he was. Winning the Ballon d'Or twice it's a remarkable achievement that no other English player has ever done. Unfortunately, I was born in '91, so we remember Keegan. Even the Newcastle spell was a little bit too early. But we remember not the best England side, which wasn't his fault, but just for kind of what we were dealing with. But yeah, I think now, over the past few days, it's been a great opportunity to reflect on what a great player he was. But also we've been hearing what a great human he was as well, in terms of how he was with other people and the time he gave others.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's maybe come a little bit too late, but hopefully after his passing, he can get that kind of extra respect as well. But maybe he hasn't had, I think, from a certain generation.
Yeah, but what I loved about him was that I started out reading comics, Tiger and Roy of the Rovers.
That's growing up.
They had this guy who was Mighty Mouse.
Yeah.
So that was Keegan's nickname. I was a kid. I was just fascinated. They had this poster in the middle of the comics. It was the first Keegan's poster. Was the first poster that I had. When I was in primary school, my room had posters of players from the wasn't the Premier League on the old first position. Then when I had a collection of them. I have one when we went to Southampton. We went to Newcastle. I was quite a bit disappointed because that season we went. And in the World Cup, he was injured, and then he came on in that. I still remember the last game. It was England and Spain. England needed to win that game to advance. Actually, and in those last few minutes, Brooklyn went across one ball for Keegan, which he headed him, narrowly missed the target. And I still remember that moment. For me, I think that it was for me like the first real English superstar. The rest of them, I mean, Bobby Charlton and Keegan was like, his hair and
like a rock star.
He
had long hair.
He was like a rock star. He wasn't like a football player. That was the image of my mind when I was growing up. When you see someone as a star, this is like the image of a star. But now when people talk about him, I find that thing back to the video of him playing. This match I watched as a kid when it was against Birmingham. That minutes for 4-1. That's my attraction. But anyway.
Emeka Jr., I've always felt that Roy Race, the lead character of Royal the Rovers, was kind of modeled after Kevin Keegan, because also I feel like those storylines and a few other things, because I too grew up reading these comic books from older cousins and stuff in the 80s, and we'll see all those pull-up posters, Keegan, Ian Rush, and a couple of other players out there. And my dad also was an avid listener of recap of football commentary on BBC radio. So it was really interesting. So fall in love with a team and you haven't even seen them play per se. You just read about them in magazines, newspapers and stuff. And then when the era of the Premier League and it starts going on TV, obviously it just kind of sealed it up like, yeah, this is my team. And that's it. That's how it's been. But yeah, Keegan, I feel like he really made he gave a big leverage to English football, and hopefully he's going to be remembered as a legend that he is in the game.
Hopefully he is indeed. Hopefully he is indeed. I think we've spoken a lot about legends, about the greatest players, about the different, and of course, different generations and different fan bases view of who the greatest players are. But that brings us to my next few questions, because we here, especially here in Africa, we have an issue, I guess, where we're trying to move a player up, to move the next generations of players up, And I want to highlight currently the program known as the EEXSport Football Pathway. Now, Dad, I'm going to actually point this question to you and then later to Mr. Webb as well from WOW Football, because the partnership relates to that. EEXSport Football Pathway is designed, as I understand it, it is learn, play, showcase, launch. I'd like to ask, why was it important to build something that goes beyond simply identifying just identifying the platform, the talent, and also just explain the model here once again? Learn, play, showcase, launch. If you could explain the model and the thought process.
Look, I'm glad that Matt is here. I'm glad that Matt is there on this call as well, because most players just want to get involved in the game, and then suddenly they start looking at the players who are playing in Premier League and everywhere, and they see themselves there. We've had conversations where some parents, and I'll give you a couple of examples, of parents who had a son who was sent to University of Nigeria, and he's there, he's in the school and the university for 3 years. He's not attending classes. He gets back home every holiday. He gets money from his parents, goes back. But all the time he's out playing football, because he wants to be a football player, but the parents insist that he's going to be a professional football player, and he's going on there. And eventually he gets tough because there are no grades. Again, he's rusticated from school, but they have to keep appearances because his parents keep insisting that he should play. And so we've worked a way around. And there were so many of them. There were probably about 5 or 6 of them at the time. I think that we realized that some of them they may not be good enough, but if they have the opportunity, then they could play. We then try to create a balance between what the parents want and what the kids want. So we have a platform where the kids are able to play football, able to learn, and then we've got a platform where we also are able to teach them something else. And that's why we also created the academy, so that we're able to teach them to play football or like basketball or whichever one where their interest is, but at the same time without losing track of. And to find that academically they're not very sound, we're able to teach them. We have one kid who was obsessed with PlayStation, and playing FIFA, all of that. But we realized that we weren't concentrating on academics, so it's creative about we were able to turn his attention and get him to go and learn how to be a match data analyst. And now he's working in Europe and earning the year because he's able to take his passion and his knowledge of those gaming, because it's the same metrics, the same interpretation of data that you have for the actual game in what you find in the games.
Actually, on that point, EA Sports, who have made the FIFA games in particular, they have actually predicted all the World Cup games going back to 2010. All the World Cup winners, by the way. So they predicted Spain in 2010. They predicted Spain this time around. They predicted Argentina in 2022. So and they used to run simulations in the actual game itself to find the World Cup winners. Not sure how far advanced it is, but if that ever gets released, you have an idea of who might be winning the World Cup in 2030. So on that note, I actually think that's a really
exactly. Matt, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, the whole idea behind a partnership. So a bit of background from myself and Lloyd, the other member of WOW Football Group. We've been working as volunteers with the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. The Marshall Islands was one of the last nations on earth to ever have an international team. So we've kind of seen firsthand just how, I mean, the breadth of talent in the soccer world nowadays is far and wide. And for us, we've been really championing providing platforms for either underrepresented groups or for people who maybe wouldn't have those opportunities otherwise. So when we look to get our first club partnership, again, we don't have deep pockets. We're not looking to buy any clubs. We're not looking at Wrexham here, but we're looking at maybe clubs in Europe who maybe have bigger ceilings of room to develop, and people that have a good connection to their community and opportunities to grow. So we found a club in Poland who we think has a great opportunity. They've got a really strong community base, and it would be a really good platform, potentially partnership with to bring talent through and give them a showcase. So I think also the important thing is not just developing good players, but good people as well. So that's something we're really, really keen on.
Thank you so much for that in-depth thing. I actually want to maybe paint a picture for me, I guess. Ideal situation. You've got a young football player. What does the complete pathway look like?
Wow, it's a big question,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think for us, it's just making sure that players, it's not thinking about just the 1% who are going to make it, but actually some of the players aren't necessarily going to find that path to the professional game, because a lot of attention always goes on that we're 0.1% even that is going to make it and get a professional contract, and not just kind of using players and giving them hope, but actually making sure that the entire pathway is sustainable. So it's about giving kind of well-rounded education. So that kind of learn part of the 4-point pathway is really important to us as well. So you're making sure that maybe if it's not a career as a professional player, there's going to be other opportunities that arise too. So if you can give someone a well-rounded education, maybe they get a career as a data analyst, as a coach, other opportunities too. So as much as we're focused on the 1% of players that are going to maybe get that professional contract, actually, how can we build that stronger, wider base at the bottom as well? So for us, it's a really good partnership with EEXSport, because we understand that it's doing things the right way, it's sustainable. So whilst we're giving good opportunities, and you never know, we might find that gem who's going to become an international superstar. Actually, for the others who may have modest professional careers, but actually it's about other opportunities they're going to get from the game. So if we can create a really meaningful partnership, it's going to benefit everybody involved. That's what I hope anyway.
Thank you.
I think you have so much right coming to your room. It feels like you're getting from heaven.
Yeah, but night time is dragging me in. I need to invest in some blinds. If I'm invited back, I'll have those by next time.
Absolutely. Dad, you want to build on to what Mr. Webb has said about, just that well-rounded education?
So basically, I think we are very excited about. It's really an amazing project and very interesting conversations about how we can create this platform that allows young people to dream, be able to combine to achieve their goals of playing whilst maintaining their focus on education, because at the end of the day, not everybody will make it. And, it's not a program that promises that you get ahead almost immediately. You have to follow a process, and you have to to learn discipline. You have to learn how to keep up with all the options that you have if you have the opportunity to grow as an individual. But then you also get, that platform allows you to also showcase your skills. And then if there is opportunity for you to make it, then you'll be given that chance. If you don't make it, there's always a fallback plan because we're then able to show you which way to go and what else, how else you can be involved in the game. If you look at the World Cup, and Katie is a good example. She's an African champion in the World Cup as part of the medical team of the Nigerian team to the Women's Basketball World Cup. If you told someone earlier that it's possible for you to be a winner, you'll always feel like, oh no, you must be a player to be a winner. There are so many roles within the sports ecosystem that end up winning. So with the Spanish team that won the World Cup, there are a lot of analysts in the team who are young people who are able to work with the coaches and the players and provide them with all the data, the videos. And, I think now you have probably more roles outside the field. Usually, like in this World Cup, there were 26 players, but the supporting cast could be like 50 people. How much, how many roles that were not there? If you go back to the World Cup, let's say the World Cup in 1982, even as recently as 2010 and 2014, roles that exist now that were not there before. So for any young player who has dreams of becoming a professional football player and doesn't make it, not the end of the world, there's always that opportunity that you can get along with. But you got a kid who's graduated for over 3 years and he's not able to make it. And then we have kids who have gone and they've gone to university, they've earned a degree, and then they're still able to play. We have one kid from our program, 2019, was actually the best player in camp, but his father was very insistent that he had to play in second division football in Romania.
That's excellent.
The opportunities are there, and there's never anything like the best time or the not so best time. Once you can show what your skill set is. And we're looking forward to welcoming March and Lloyd to Africa. And they've traveled to Marshall Islands. Tell him to explain to you how far it is to get to Marshall Islands.
I don't think it's possible it's at least 24 hours of traveling, and that's without any delays. It couldn't be any further from the UK, but that's the beautiful thing about this place. So,
so imagine if you're traveling from Africa, it could be like 3 days.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, so Marshall Islands is the last country in the world to play international games for the first time. Was it last year?
Yeah, we played our first inaugural matches in August 2025 in the United States. So for us, for future goals are ultimately FIFA admission. So one day we'd love to be taking part in the World Cup qualifiers. If they keep expanding the competition to 200 teams, maybe we have a chance at qualifying. But until then, we'd happily settle for being part of a qualification cycle. So we're looking to get Confederation membership first and then look at joining FIFA afterwards. But we're still very much at the start of our journey.
I think the starting point would be like a league as well.
Yes, a league. Marshall Islands that would be what confederation would that fall under in terms of like region, in terms of
so we're looking to apply for the Asian Football Confederation. We're an interesting part of the world where we span both Oceania, OFC, and Asia, AFC. Because actually international travel between oceanic countries isn't the most straightforward. And so for us, actually looking north to Asia could be a more kind of sustainable option for us.
You could be playing in North America because Marshall Islands is not too far from Hawaii.
Well, we did send a little message to CONCACAF. I don't think they were too pleased with that necessarily. But it's something that came on because one of you mentioned the main transit route actually is from Hawaii in the USA, so it's possible. I wouldn't say impossible, but yeah.
All right. Thank you. So my last question, actually. I'm not sure how you're going to quantify this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Looking ahead, what would success look like for the EEXSport Football Pathway?
I think the best way to look at it is it's not so much how many people end up playing pro. I think it's how many kids have the opportunity to play. How many people have the opportunity to play? And because we're so blessed with talent, we know that a good number of them will make it. But I think that the best part of it is that we are able to offer kids opportunities to play. Just like what Matt and Lloyd have done with Marshall Islands is like giving them an opportunity to play international football before they're even properly recognized. So I think for us, giving kids opportunity to play, give them an opportunity to consider that they can study and play at the same time, or play and study, and also consider the possibility that they can get a platform to showcase their skills. In 2019, when we brought the coaches from Mainz in the Bundesliga, I still remember the first morning when we arrived and the kids came in, did accreditation, and the kids they all had their own kits and they arrived. And then just after they had done the first warm-ups, the coaches told them to come into the room where they normally use for their talks to the players. And then they gave them all their shirts because they had already collected their size, but they didn't know those kits were. They gave them their kits. And those kits wore the shirts. And immediately it seemed like they were transported to the Bundesliga because now they're wearing the same shirts as the actual Mainz team. And so that was just something that was amazing. And they played. And then I remember that on the Saturday, because we were there for 2 weeks, on the Saturday, we set up TVs for a Bundesliga game between Mainz and all of these kids were supporting Mainz because they've been playing for a week in Mainz kids, and they, in their head, they were thinking like, okay, by the way I'm playing, this is my team now, and we're playing, and they were scoring. To see, this wasn't just kids who were fans of Bundesliga. It was kids who, at that point in time, were already they were teleported to Bundesliga because they've been playing in the kids, and some of them ended up going to study in Europe. 12 or 15 of them went to study overseas, and some of them carried on playing. But we're going to recreate that again because we still have the relationship, and we're bringing the coaches back, and hopefully we will get. Then we see that opportunity, see what's possible, and also show them what we're planning to do.
Thank you. And I just want to give thanks to you, Dad, Dr. KT, Mr. Webb, Dr. Tochukwu, even though we lost you. Thank you all so much for joining us for this special episode. It was great having you. It was great having each of you. I want to give a thank you to everyone who joined us at EEXSport Game Night and helped make that such a memorable event. Also want to give a thank you once again to WOW Football Group as we continue to build the EEXSport Football Pathway. Once again, learn, play, showcase, and launch. To you watching at home, if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like the video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm C Enyadike Jr. This has been EEXSport Talk. We will see you next time.